My sister called my stay-at-home husband a glorified housewife at dinner, so I exposed how he paid her rent for 10 years, bought her a car, and cut her off. My spouse and I have been happily married for over a decade. We have a wonderful daughter who has provided us so much joy. My spouse has always been interested in gaming, and even before we met, he had created his own YouTube channel dedicated to it. However, his channel was fairly modest at the time, with only a limited number of subscribers. At the time, he was also working a conventional 8-to-4 job, which gave him stability as he followed his hobbies. He never lost his enthusiasm for gaming, but YouTube was more of a hobby than a source of revenue. When CO-19 struck, things became more challenging. He, like many others, lost his job when the company where he worked closed down. It was a really difficult moment for both of us, especially because I was pregnant, and I was now the only one making money. He was heartbroken, since losing his job was more than simply about money. It also influenced his confidence and sense of security. Despite the emotional toll, he refused to quit up. While aggressively applying for new employment, he chose to devote all of his efforts and focus to building his channel. His commitment and hard effort ultimately paid off. His channel gradually grew in popularity, and it eventually became a reliable source of revenue. The same love that was once simply a pastime has evolved into something that helps sustain our family. It was not an easy trip, but looking back, I appreciate his tenacity and endurance. After I gave birth to our baby, my husband made an important decision. He decided to become a full-time YouTuber while simultaneously being a stay-at-home dad. Because his job mostly entailed gaming and generating content from home, it seemed natural for him to be the primary caretaker for our daughter. He had previously planned to spend the most of the day at home. So, rather than employing outside help, he chose to take on the task of caring for her himself. I have to admit that this arrangement has worked out really well for us. My spouse is a very involved, hands-on father. He does more than just monitor our baby. He actively engages with her, plays with her, and attends to her needs. At the same time, his channel has continued to expand, resulting in additional chances and cash. Meanwhile, I contribute monetarily and perform my fair share of domestic tasks to ensure that our partnership remains balanced. One of the most thrilling aspects of his accomplishment is that it has enabled us to achieve things we could only have imagined. We've been able to go worldwide multiple times thanks to his channel, experiencing new places together and making unforgettable experiences. It's something we've always wanted to do, but it seemed like a faraway objective. In addition, he assisted me in repaying my university loan, which relieved me of a significant load. We even moved into a new home 2 years ago, which seemed like a huge step forward for our family. Looking at where we are today, I have absolutely no complaints. However, not everyone, particularly my sister, sees our lives in the same way I do. She is highly opinionated about my husband's position as a stay-at-home dad and full-time YouTuber. Let's just say they're not exactly positive. To provide some context, my sister's life has been very different from mine. She dropped out of college at a young age and made the snap choice to flee and marry the love of her life. At the moment, she was certain she had discovered her happily ever after. But things did not turn out as she had hoped. Her husband got her pregnant, but instead of acting like a father, he encouraged her to end the pregnancy. She declined, preferring to keep the baby, and this decision impacted her life forever. She is now a single mother, raising 2 small children on her own. Her ex has abandoned his obligations and contributed nothing to their development. He claims he cannot afford to pay child support due to his large gaming debt. But I don't believe him for 1 second. According to what I've seen on social media, he recently moved on with a new partner and appears to have no trouble spending money elsewhere. It's brutally evident that he doesn't want to care for his children. This is precisely why I've always tried to help my sister in every way I could. As her elder sister, I have always felt a strong feeling of responsibility for her and her children. No matter what errors she has made in the past, she is still my sister, and I cannot stand by and watch her suffer alone. Over the last decade, my husband and I have worked hard to assist her get back on her feet. We assisted her in purchasing a car so that she could have reliable transportation to work and care for her children. We also routinely help her pay her rent since we understand how difficult it is for a single mother to make ends meet, especially without steady child support. We've helped her purchase groceries and handle some of her children's bills while she wasn't working. We don't make a big deal about it or want anything in exchange. For us, she is family, and family helps one another. The underlying issue, however, is that my sister appears to have a negative attitude toward my spouse for unknown reasons. Despite everything he's done for me and our kid, she still believes that a guy should leave the house to work a regular job. She has made a few statements over the years that show she does not appreciate his job as a stay-at-home dad and full-time YouTuber. She casually said to me that she does not believe it is appropriate for him to sit at home all day while other guys go out to work. Every time she brought it up, I politely told her that things have changed. My spouse isn't just sitting at home. He works hard and makes more money from YouTube than he would at a real job. So, why should he move someplace else when he can provide for us while still being a present father to our daughter? My sister has gone so far as to make jokes at his expense on several occasions. She has addressed him as Mrs., and jokingly referred to him as the lady in the relationship. My spouse and I have never allowed these words affect us. We've always laughed them off, understanding that her ideas don't shape our lives or happiness. This weekend, my parents arranged a modest family gathering, asking all of our relatives to share a dinner and spend quality time together. It was a friendly and vibrant event, with everyone catching up and telling anecdotes. During lunch, the subject somehow turned to our recent trip to Italy. My folks were ecstatic as they informed everyone about it. They were overjoyed and happy, raving about how wonderful the vacation appeared in our social media photos and how much my husband and I must have liked it. Because no one else in the family had ever been to Italy, everyone was excited to hear about our trip. They inquired about the locations we went, the meals we ate, and the memories we created. My aunt jumped in at one point, expressing her genuine happiness for us. She was inspired to see my husband and I doing so well, and how our success had enabled us to provide a better life for our child, something we never had growing up. It was a lovely thing to hear, and I couldn't help but grin in gratitude. It felt good to be acknowledged. But although the rest of the family was happy for us, my sister had a quite different attitude. She remained quiet, even rolling her eyes. Then, in a light-hearted moment, my mother quipped that she hoped the next time we planned a trip, we would bring her and my father as well. It was supposed to be a joke, but my spouse took it quite seriously. He said with his usual zeal that he would be delighted to accompany us on our journey. He even began discussing prospective places, enthusiastically recommending Hawaii as an excellent choice for a family holiday. My parents were thrilled with the concept, but my sister sneered loudly enough for everyone to hear. We all turned to face her, puzzled. She suddenly blurted out, "I just don't get how everyone is so okay with this." She shook her head and continued, her tone filled with cynicism. "I mean, seriously, he's just a glorified housewife basically." The entire table became quiet. Everyone froze when she said those words. The pleasant ambiance of only seconds previously evaporated in an instant. My husband's face plummeted instantly. I knew she didn't really appreciate my husband's job, but I never anticipated her to publicly disparage him in front of our whole family. I felt a rush of rage build within me. Without thinking, I went to her and asked, "What do you mean by that?" She shrugged her shoulders, unconcerned, as if she hadn't just degraded my husband in public. Then, with a sense of superiority, she said, "I've always thought your husband is extremely womanly, very ladylike. No true man would deliberately stay at home to care for his child. That is simply not what males do." I was startled. She continued, pointing at me as if she were trying to make her point. "Men are meant to go out and get money, not sit home playing video games and caring for babies. That is a woman's job. He's basically just a good-for-nothing stay-at-home dad." My fury was boiling. "How could you degrade my husband?" I exclaimed, my rage barely suppressed. "You and your children are able to eat because of him and his employment. Because of his kindness and generosity, you received a beautiful new automobile when yours broke down and you didn't have the money to replace it. He is responsible for providing you with a roof over your head and paying your rent even while you are suffering. And now you have the guts to sit here and criticize him." My sister simply gazed at me, taken aback by my unexpected outburst. But I wasn't done. "You describe his employment as ladylike, as if it is something to be embarrassed of. But allow me to tell you something. Because of this so-called ladylike work, my husband and I have constructed a nice existence for ourselves. We've been able to travel, move into a new house, and most significantly, assist you when you had no one else to turn to." I could feel my hands trembling, partially from rage and frustration. My spouse has never hesitated to aid my sister, never asked for anything in return. And yet, here she was, attacking him just because he did not match her antiquated definition of manhood. My sister certainly didn't expect me to defend my husband so vehemently. Her eyes widened, and her mouth dropped open in surprise, as if she couldn't believe I had called her out in front of everyone. At this moment, my mother joined in as well. She went to my sister with a disappointed expression and chastised her right there. "How can you say such a thing?" my mother demanded. "This is the man who has helped you more than your own ex. He has helped you when no one else could. And this is how you will thank him." The remainder of the family sat in uneasy quiet, watching the situation unfold. My sister, now clearly on the defensive, began looking for an explanation. "I didn't really mean to offend anyone," she said, attempting to brush it off. "I'm just being straightforward sometimes. You're all getting worked up about nothing." But I wasn't going to let her deceive me into believing I was overreacting. I could still feel the anguish in my husband's eyes, which was enough to keep me going. "Nothing," I said, my tone harsh. "You just publicly humiliated my husband, the father of my kid, who has done nothing but support me and you. And now you want to pretend it's nothing. No, you can't insult him and then claim that I'm the one who's overreacting." She attempted to argue, but I didn't let her. "You act like you're better than him since he stays at home to raise our kid while simultaneously working well. Meanwhile, the father of your children has abandoned you. Despite this, you continue to hold on to these foolish ideals about what a genuine guy should be. Okay. Let me tell you this. My spouse is a more genuine man than your ex would ever be. Because you believe my husband is a good-for-nothing. That he is womanly and not a true guy, you have no right to ask him for anything ever again." My voice was forceful, with no space for dispute. "If you don't appreciate him, you won't gain from his kindness. So, the next time you're out of work, need assistance with rent or food, or your car breaks down, don't come to us. Ask your deadbeat ex, since you appear to have a better understanding of what a true guy should be." My sister's eyes widened in amazement as I whispered those words. It was evident she had not expected such a severe reaction to her statements. She quickly began backtracking, her voice stuttering as she attempted to explain. "Wait, I didn't mean it that way. I wasn't really serious. Come on, you're overreacting." However, the harm had already been done. My spouse, who had been silent for the majority of this, eventually stood out. His speech was gentle yet firm. "My wife is right. Regardless of how you have treated me, I have assisted you without hesitation for over a decade. But I am done. I will never open my pocketbook or my house to you again." His remarks were so definitive that my sister paled. She looked around the room, waiting for someone to enter, but no one did. My parents seemed disappointed with her. Our family avoided eye contact and no one came to her rescue. We have been there for her for over 10 years. We had stepped up when her ex abandoned her, provided financial assistance, and ensured that her children never went hungry. And yet, she had the arrogance to ridicule the guy who made it all happen. Well, now she would know what life was like without us at her side. Since that night at the party, the entire family has turned against my sister. Nobody is on her side, and I'm not surprised. Everyone in our family adores my hubby. They understand how diligent, caring, and generous he is. They have witnessed personally how much we have done for my sister over the last decade. So seeing her publicly humiliate him like that didn't sit well with anyone. My sister is now experiencing the repercussions of her own conduct. She has been continually contacting me, moaning about feeling isolated from her family. According to her, everyone is ignoring her, and she doesn't understand why things have gone so terrible over what she considers to be a handful of little words. She even had the guts to tell me that I was wrong for abusing her in public. "You shouldn't have embarrassed me like that," she had written. "You made me look bad in front of everyone. I can't believe this." She is acting as if she is the victim in this situation, as if I surprised her for no reason. The reality is, she did this to herself. She chose to openly criticize my husband, and now she is angry that she is receiving public criticism for it. I haven't responded to her texts yet since I honestly don't know what to say. Update A. To everyone who has criticized me for not supporting my husband sufficiently or for allowing my sister to walk all over him, believe me, I do not. I constantly support my hubby. I always have, and always will. He understands that I have his back, which is why I stood up for him when my sister mistreated him. And honestly, you're okay. My sister is jealous of me. It is so evident now. She resents my spouse because he embodies everything her ex could never be. My hubby is a nice guy. He is a caring parent, industrious, and loyal. He stepped forward in ways that most guys would not. Instead of enjoying this, my sister attempts to bring him down since she knows the reality. Her ex is the total opposite. He is careless, unreliable, and has entirely abandoned her and their children. That fact clearly aches for her. So rather of dealing with it, she is transferring her resentment onto my husband. She mocks him for remaining at home and being a hands-on father because she never had that experience. She describes him as womanly because she links parenthood and caregiving with weakness. In truth, doing what my spouse does requires a great deal of strength. I'm sure she realizes she's made a mistake. She understands that she has lost the support of not only myself and my husband, but our entire family. She now wants to play the victim. But I am done making excuses for her. She made her bed. Now she may lie in it. Update B. My mother contacted me earlier this week and our talk just reaffirmed what I had assumed. My sister has been on full damage control mode. According to my mother, she has been phoning regularly, attempting to relay her version of the story to everyone, most likely in the hopes of gaining sympathy. However, my parents and other relatives who attended the celebration are not convinced. Both my mother and father have made it obvious to my sister that if she wants to make things right, she must apologize and accept responsibility for what she said. There are no explanations or reasons, only a real apology. I have a great deal of respect for my parents. They are not enabling or excusing her actions. Instead, they have said unequivocally that they totally back any decision my husband and I make with my sister, even if we never help her again. They are absolutely okay with it. They say, "My sister is a grown woman. She has made her own decisions. She has children, and she has to learn how to care for them independently. My spouse and I have done enough for her. And if she wants to behave as if she doesn't need us, she must live with her decision." Hearing that from my parents has been a huge comfort. I was half expecting them to attempt to shame me into forgiving my sister or giving her another opportunity. But they didn't. They witnessed how unfair she was to my husband, and they understand why we stopped assisting her. For the time being, I have had no contact with my sister. I've been entirely ignoring her calls and messages because I honestly don't have anything to say to her. My spouse, on the other hand, has already made his decision. He has blocked her and has no intention of ever communicating with her again. And I don't blame him a bit. After all she said and the way she tried to humiliate him, she no longer deserves our sympathy. We went above and above to help her for almost a decade. In response, she humiliated the guy who made it possible. At this point, I believe I'll follow my husband's lead and cut her off totally. She does not deserve our support, money, or even our time. If she truly believes my spouse is worthless and womanly, she can find out how to live without him. I do not feel guilty. Not even a little. She made her bed. Now she may lie in it. Update C. It has been 3 months since my previous update. My sister unexpectedly showed up at our doorway late last night. She was weeping, and her children stood by her, fatigued and afraid. I knew immediately away that something was badly wrong. It turns out she hasn't been able to pay her rent since her work doesn't pay her enough to cover her expenditures. Her landlord had supposedly given her several warnings, yet she still went behind. And now he's finally booted her out. She had nowhere else to go, so she turned to us for assistance. For a time I simply stood there looking at her. This was the same woman who had criticized my husband for remaining at home, describing him as a glorified housewife rather than a true man. The same sister who attempted to embarrass him in front of the entire family. And now she's back, pleading for a roof over her head. I felt bad for her and her children, but I didn't want to help her. She has never apologized to me or my husband, and just because she needs us doesn't mean I'll forget everything and invite her in. I informed her right away that she needed to locate a motel, or better yet, ask her ex for aid. When she heard this, she became defensive, insisting that I was her sister and that it was my obligation, not his, to support her. She attempted to reason with me, saying she just needed a place to stay for a few months so she could save money and find something more permanent for herself and the kids. I shook my head and informed her unequivocally that I could not accept that. I reminded her that she was now on her own, and that it was no longer mine or my husband's responsibility to care for her. I made it plain that she had burnt this bridge when she mistreated the man who had done so much to aid her over the previous decade. I also pointed out that she never apologized for the terrible things she spoke about my spouse. She had many months to put things right. Nonetheless, she opted to ignore us until she needed something. Now she was waiting at our door, expecting us to open it for her as if nothing had occurred. The arrogance of it all was maddening. She attempted to fight and offer excuses, but I was not having it. My choice was finalized. She needed to work things out without us, just as she had said she could. I didn't want to dispute anymore, particularly in front of her children. So, without another word, I shut the door on her. She stood outside ranting at me, calling me nasty, callous, and a terrible sister. But I didn't move. I could hear her children sniffling in the background. And while that aspect stung, I knew I'd made the correct decision. Finally, she had no option but to depart. She eventually wound up at my parents' house where she is now residing. My father, according to what I've heard, is really disappointed with her. He sees through her justifications and understands why she's in this circumstance. But at the same time, he and my mother have decided to let her stay temporarily, mostly for the sake of the children. Final update. It's been a while since I last updated. I thought things had finally calmed down once my sister moved to live with my parents, but I was mistaken. While I was at work yesterday, she arrived to our house utterly uninvited and intoxicated. My spouse subsequently informed me that it began with a loud pounding on the door. He assumed it was a delivery or perhaps a neighbor, but then he heard her shouting. She screamed his name and demanded that he unlock the door. When he finally did, she pushed her way in, looking unkempt and angry. She immediately started blaming him for everything. She blamed him of ruining our relationship, claiming that if it hadn't been for him, I would never have cut her off. She proceeded on a diatribe about how he had indoctrinated me against my own family, and how he was nothing but a pitiful excuse for a man. My husband, being the calm and sensible individual that he is, attempted to de-escalate the issue. He encouraged her to sit down, take a big breath and cool down. But that's when he recognized something was very wrong. She slurred her words and swayed on her feet. She was obviously inebriated. Instead of connecting with her, he took out his phone and contacted my mother. I was at work at the time, so I had no idea what was going on. My spouse also tried contacting me, but I was at a meeting and didn't notice the missed calls straight away. Meanwhile, my sister continued to rant, becoming increasingly enraged, calling him names and claiming that if he were a true man, he would have helped her rather than abandoning her in her hour of need. My mother never returned his call. My sister's condition had deteriorated by this point. She began throwing things, including knocking over a lamp and nearly breaking a glass on the counter. At one point, she shouted at our kid who was innocently standing nearby, and my husband understood this was more than just an argument. So he did what he needed to do. He phoned the cops. When the cops came, my sister was still yelling at him. When she saw them, she tried to play it off as if he was the problem, acting as if she had done nothing wrong when she had barged into our home. However, she was clearly intoxicated, and my husband had the entire incident recorded on our home security cameras. The officers did not believe her act. Finally, they took her away. She was arrested for trespassing. By the time I noticed the missed calls and texts, everything had already happened. My husband told me, and I was furious. I'm furious at my sister for crossing the line again. I was furious that she dared to show up and harass my husband while I was not home. And furious that she yelled at my daughter. If I had any sympathy for my sister, it is now completely gone. I can never forgive her now. My husband and I have agreed that if she shows up at our house again, we will file a restraining order. My entire family is now aware that my sister was arrested and held overnight. My parents are in total shock. They never imagined things would get this far. My dad is furious. He's saying that he's had enough and wants to kick her out immediately. He has been patient with her for far too long, and he now believes she is endangering herself, and more importantly, her children. My mother admitted to me that she has noticed my sister drinking a lot more lately, even when she is supposed to be watching her children. She admitted that there have been nights when my sister arrived home clearly intoxicated, stumbling around while the kids were still awake. My mother refused to believe it was a real problem, but after this incident, she can no longer deny it. My parents are scared now. They're terrified that if my sister continues on this path, she'll unintentionally harm her children. My father wants her to leave immediately, but my mother is torn. She knows my sister is spiraling, but she doesn't want to abandon the grandchildren. At this point, I have no idea what will happen next, but one thing is certain. My sister requires urgent assistance, and she is running out of people who are willing to provide it.